to suffer, but he was willing to do it because getting that reward in the end is much greater than living in that sin. You know, Peter could have went out, he could have just kept denying God, just kept living, he kept saying Jesus Christ wasn't it. He could have ran away and said, I don't know him. He could have kept doing that. He didn't only have to do that 3 times. But to feel that affliction of denying God was so great on him. And you know it had to be, because just even thinking about it almost brings you to your knees. I mean, honestly, you think of that affliction of the Holy Spirit getting down upon you and actually telling you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. It just makes you wonder, why was I ever in sin? Why was I ever even in that? Because the pleasures of sin, they say that the world ain't got nothing to offer you. It's got everything to offer you.
Yes, it does.
Everything. You can go to a bar and you can have 3,000 friends at that bar. You can have friends at your doorstep all the time. And that's a pleasure to the world. But whenever you ain't got no money and you can't buy them around anymore, those friends are gone. And then you lose that pleasure, you lose that one thing, so then you end up stealing money, you end up getting money, that way you can buy your friends around at the bar. And you know, what pleasure is that anymore, Sister Amanda? What pleasure is it whenever you end up, people think, taking Brother Derek back for example, he can think, I can go up to Nashville, I can make millions. I can make millions, I can play music, I can make millions.
Come on.
But what happens whenever you're laying in bed at night and your wife's done left you?
Come on.
The drugs have overtaken you. You lost that $10,000 base that you just bought because you didn't have any more money left.
Come on.
People don't ever look at the end processes of it. You know, the devil will make everything glorified. It just make it all look beautiful. The money's there, the alcohol's there, the drugs are there. Everything's going to feel great. You're just going to have to live, love, and laugh. That's all you're going to ever have to do. But he doesn't show you in the end whenever you're suffering for that. That little bitty spot, because you know the devil don't like to show us the end thing. It says that, like it says right here, then to enjoy the pleasures of sin.
For a season.
For a season. Just for a season, because sin's not always pleasurable, is it? No. It's not, because eventually you're going to end up at that judgment. And it might be pleasurable here, but in the end, it's not anything like the way you ever expected it to be.
That's right.
You're right.
And you know, to suffer afflictions, you know, just using me, or my little brother got hit by a truck to open somebody's eyes, and it's sad. It's sad that had to happen, but honestly, Coda, he got out blessed. He didn't have any scarring on his face. He didn't lose more than one tooth. He got a cap on it. But he suffered that affliction to see somebody else's eyes open. See somebody else get a hold of God.
Come on.
You know, it's sad to say, but sometimes we all have to suffer affliction, regardless of whether it's spiritual, physical, anything. Spiritual, being down on your knees all night because you can't get this other brother off your mind. And I couldn't imagine the life of a pastor's wife having to be down all night because the pastor won't leave her alone about praying for somebody, getting calls in the middle of the night, suffering that great affliction because it's a great work.
Come on, brother.
And you know, you think about it, oh gosh, I don't want to stay up all night praying for somebody. But honestly, Sister Man, how many times have you been extremely tired the next morning after staying up all night praying for people?
No.
Come on.
That affliction wasn't that bad after you thought about it.
No.
Just getting out and doing it. You know, sometimes we think, Brother Derek, oh gosh, getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning like we were talking. That's really hard to do, getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, getting tracks. But whenever you really set your mind to it, you really get a hold of God, and that's one thing you're really supposed to do. Is that affliction that great in the morning?
Come on.
Is it that great whenever it's all said and done with, whenever you actually get out and do it? And you know, I want to thank God for that, because you know, getting hit with the truck, I could have been paralyzed.
Yes.
I could have been, by the world standards, I shouldn't have been able to walk.
Right.
Especially not the day after. I should have been a couple of days in the hospital. My diabetes would put me in the hospital more than what that wreck did.
You're right.
And they were expecting me to be dead on arrival.
They did.
And you know, that's God. Because somebody quit drinking alcohol over that.
Yeah.
Somebody that I know, a friend of mine that just turned 21, that could buy all the alcohol that he wanted. He had a pretty good job, he was working extra hours, he was living good, or what he so thought. And then he saw somebody hit me. And he came up to the hospital that night, and he sat there at the end of my bed and started crying. And he looked at me, and a couple of days later he said, I ain't drinking no more. He went out and poured out his case, poured out the rest of the alcohol, and he said, I ain't drinking no more. You know, that's one affliction for one soul. He may not be sitting on the church row one day, but he knows. He got a hold of God somebody got a hold of God that day because they realized that somebody else was afflicted because of that sin.
All right.
Because somebody else's sin, we were afflicted a little bit. You know, a friend of mine, every time I saw him pray, it It really got a hold of me. And I loved it. I loved to see him shout. I loved it. I loved to see him pray. Whenever I realized that he left the church, it killed me. Whenever I saw him leaving the church, he started killing me. And you know, that didn't stop me from praying for him. That affliction, because I was the one that helped him get there. I was the one that invited him, you know. And to see him leave, it hit me so great that it brought me to my knees several times. But you know, honestly, that affliction is not that bad because he knows the truth.
That's right.
And I've done what I could.
That's right.
And I suffered what I could to try to see him get hold of God.
Yeah.
That affliction is not that great, not that bad in the end, honestly. You think about it, Bishop Trull preaching that the kids are going to have their fingers chopped off. And the kids are going to be to suffer because, Mom, that's going to be the hardest job for y'all is to see your kids go through suffering.
Of course.
Daddies, that's going to be the worst job ever, is to see your kids go through suffering because you live for the gospel. Because you live with God and you suffered that affliction. And to see your kids get tortured that bad.
Come on.
But to know that God's a wonderful, mighty, and great God, that He can change all situations.
Hallelujah.
And regardless, even if they killed them, to know where they're going to be. Suffering that affliction is going to be a whole lot greater. Because if you give up and you break down and you say, all right, fine, I'll deny God, then your kids are going to see that. And what happens if they end up denying God later on in life and then you have that blood on your hands?
Come on.
That affliction is going to be great. It seems hard now. I couldn't imagine what it's going to be like. I don't want to imagine. But that affliction is going to be so hard that it's going to make you want to buckle. But to suffer through that affliction is going to be so wonderful because in the end,
In the payday.
payday,
Come on.
whenever we get to walk on that street of gold, whenever we get to see those mansions, whenever we get to see the white throne,
Yeah.
that great white throne, it's going to be all worth it.
It'll be